as early as I could to go to watch cartoons. And there, still today, we have one channel that shows, that's the nearest station from the nearest town. So we had one channel, and they would show Looney Tunes in the morning. And so I'd sit and laugh. My grandfather came in, because he would be up well before we were ever up. Always out working in the fields really early. But he came in and he said, he stood there for a while. I said, "What are you watching?" It's like, "Oh, Coyote, Wile E. Coyote, he's so funny." And I was explaining, you know, that he's going to try to catch the Roadrunner, but he never catches the Roadrunner. And my grandfather, I just remember standing there saying, "Oh, Coyote, found a way to get on TV." And, you know, when we talk about Coyote having human characteristics, his need for fame, you know, his overpowering ego, his need for attention, which is why he's on TV. One of the longest surviving cartoons. Well, but it made sense that, you know, for me I connected dots. Wow, this is, you know, later on thinking back, I was sitting there watching this cartoon, which is true. I mean, you know, you watch Wile E. Coyote and everybody always says, "No, don't do that, don't do that." And he gets caught in his own trap. You know, will he ever learn? Well, his job is to teach in a weird way, and it's exactly what our coyote does for us. So, long time ago, the animal people were on the earth, and they didn't have names, so they knew each other as brother and sister and aunt and uncle. They didn't have names for each other. They just knew their relational status. So these animal people existed. And one day, when Coyote was away, he came back and he heard all this talk about a change. Something was going to happen. At about that time, the Great Spirit came down and he said, called all the animal people together, and he said, "The time has come for a change. In the morning, I will need all of you to make your way to my lodge to receive your name." He said, "The first one by can have any name they choose, and the rest of you will choose from the names that remain." Oh my gosh, these animal people were so excited. They thought, we're going to actually have names. They had heard about these, but they never had one themselves. So they were excited. And so they went back home and started preparing to go to sleep so they could get up early in the morning and make their way so they could have a good name. All except for Coyote. Oh, now Coyote. He went around bragging that he should have one of the 3 powerful names. He said, "I shall be called Salmon, ruler of the water. Or I shall be called Eagle, ruler of the sky. Or I shall be called Bear, ruler of the land." Oh, Coyote. Those animal people just ignored him. They thought, "Oh, foolish Coyote. He just always brags," and they just didn't pay much attention. So they went about their business getting ready for the nighttime, getting ready for evening. And as the sun began to set, they all settled down for the night, except for Coyote. Now Coyote went around stealing firewood from all the other camps. And when he gathered all this firewood, he went to his lodge and he built a huge fire. And he was determined to stay awake all night. Well, as that night grew longer and longer, Coyote grew sleepier and sleepier. Oh, by the time the middle of the night came, he was so frantic he felt around on the ground and found 2 sticks. And he propped his eyes wide open. And he said, "Now for sure, I will stay awake all night." But as the night grew longer and longer, Coyote grew sleepier and sleepier. Just before the sun was about to set or rise, Coyote fell over in front of the fire, fast asleep, with his eyes wide open. Oh, poor Coyote. The sun rose and all the other animal people got up and started moving around and were excited to make their way to the lodge. As they had to go to the Great Spirit's lodge, they had to pass Coyote's lodge, and some of them kicked dirt and threw things at him and snickered and laughed and pointed because Coyote was still asleep. And he looked pretty funny too. So as they went to the Great Spirit's Lodge, all the animal people gathered around and they received their name. There was skunk, there was rabbit, there was spider, there was possum, there was eagle, and there was salmon. All the animals received a name, and they were all very happy. They also received responsibilities with those names. So by the time the sun was high in the sky, all the animal people were done and had named brand new names. It was about the time Coyote woke up. And he looked around, and he didn't see anybody. He thought, oh yes, I'm the first one awake. So he took off as fast as he could to the Great Spirit's Lodge. And when he got there, he said, I shall have one of the 3 powerful names. I shall be called Salmon, ruler of the water. And the Great Spirit just shook his head. He said, oh, then I shall be called Eagle, ruler of the sky then. The Great Spirit shook his head. He said, well, then I shall be called Bear, ruler of the land. The Great Spirit just shook his head. He said, oh, Coyote, my son, foolish Coyote, while you were sleeping, all the other animal people made their way to my lodge and they all received their names. The only name left is yours, Coyote, the trickster. Now you go and you wear it well. Poor Coyote. His tail between his legs, and walked off. He was so sad. The Great Spirit, feeling sorry for his son, and knowing how important he was, called out to him, Coyote, come here. He said, soon the time will come for a change, and I will be creating a new being. And this being will need someone to teach it what to eat, someone to teach it how to hunt, someone to teach it right from wrong. And this Coyote will be your job, and you go and you do it well. Oh, Coyote shook his shoulders, stood up straight, and trotted off. He said, yes, I have a job. So from that day on, Coyote has taught us with his stories, and he still teaches us today. So stories are always really important. And, you know, the interesting thing is that as we go along, we learn, we hear these stories, and we learn about our place, maybe in our family, our place in life, also our places for us as Dene people. When I was about 15 years old, I had the opportunity to go to France, to go to Paris. Mm-hmm. And I realized, you know, we raised money. It was a little over $3,000 to go. Had fundraisers, did all that we needed to do to raise money. And I was going to a school that was in Albuquerque, so I was one of very few Native kids there. And as the time got closer, I think I began to realize that I was the only Navajo kid going, but also the only Native kid going. Mm-hmm. And I started to really question my ability to answer questions. It was becoming a lot of responsibility, I thought, and I got really scared. And I remember thinking, oh man, maybe I shouldn't go. You know, I didn't know how I was going to have to answer, what kind of questions I'd have to answer. And to give you guys a sense of what that would feel like, imagine if you were to be all of a sudden given the wonderful opportunity, maybe it wasn't your choice, that you were going to be sent to Kikipu Nation School, where you're one of very few non-Indians that are going there. How would you feel? Probably would be check in till the end of the day comes every day for a while, and hoping to somehow fit in. That's the feeling I think I've had, and I think a lot of Native people have when they're introduced into a new environment where there are no connections. Mm-hmm. So I panicked, and I worried that I wouldn't be able to represent my people well. And at 15, that's a pretty big